This episode is a Q&A episode from one of our listeners, Lauren, who asked me about self-worth and how she could raise her vibration in regards to how she can improve self-worth, or maybe reasons why we struggle with self-worth, and looking at the real source of things to help bring clarity and raise said vibration. And I'm just reading this for the most part verbatim, and thank you, Lauren, for your question. This is a powerful question and a powerful conversation to have in regards to self-worth. We're going to talk about a different perspective on it. And you guys will notice whenever I do talk about self-worth and empowerment or disempowerment or anything like that, I never bring up self-esteem. So this isn't a conversation about self-esteem. And we'll also talk about why, okay? We're going to talk about self-worth today and why we feel like we are lacking in it, and some of the causes, some of the core wounds that we deal with, that we grow up with, essentially, in order to learn how we can raise our vibration and stay in that state of knowing that we are worthy simply by existing. Hello, welcome to another episode of the You Are Limitless podcast. I'm your host, Madam Chico Nowicki, all the things Chico, coming to you from the holistic wellness space as a spiritual transformational life coach. And I thank you for joining me here on another episode on Y'all. And if you're just now tuning in, I am so glad to have you here with me on the show, on my journey, and having me a part of your journey. And just know that you are loved and supported unconditionally here. This is my way of bringing psychology, metaphysical concepts, universal law, as well as my own story of extreme limitations due to abuse, drug abuse, and being a justice impacted individual into the light so that we can learn how to let go of what doesn't serve us and start to incorporate more of our truth. So I'm always excited about getting into our vortex, raising that vibration, and discovering more of who we are by letting go of those limiting, yucky, negative beliefs that keep us from our truth. And one of those yucky, limiting, negative beliefs, friends, is the idea of lacking in self-worth. Okay, so Lauren and everybody else, let's go ahead and dive on in, because we want to talk about first what it means to be lacking in self-worth. It's one thing to hear about positive self-talk and how we should do it and that we're worthy, but like, what does that mean? Like, and then what creates that disconnection from understanding that we are valuable simply by existing? To feel like you're lacking in self-worth, that means that you are devaluing yourself every single time. Now then, there are things outside of ourselves that can confirm that bias. Maybe when we were younger, we had to do things to prove ourselves. We had to be the good girl, the quiet girl, or dude, be the straight A student, something, in order to get some form of validation and approval of our worth to the people who were our caregivers, being seen as worthy in their eyes. Self-worth, or the lack of it, is based on the conditional experiences of our life growing up and well into adulthood and so forth. Because a lot of people, by the way, not everybody, but given the fact that we live on a very disharmonious world at times, and yes, we are part of the generation and generations to come raising a vibration, stepping out of those old, weird, egoic, negative paradigms into this higher state of being by remembering who we are. However, most of us have grown up with conditional love. We've experienced conditional love and conditional support. Okay, this is not unconditional. Unconditional means that no matter who you are, what you do, what you look like, what you say, what you think, what you feel, you are unconditionally loved and supported. By the way, this is how the universe, creation, God, whatever you want to call it, sees you, as an extension of that. But it is through our beliefs and our perceptions that we believe otherwise. And yes, don't get me wrong, that there are things out there externally, such as people or maybe situations or relationships that can devalue us. But here's the thing, Lauren, and everyone else. But yes, I'm talking to you, Lauren, of course, since you asked the question. Just know I'm not like nitpicking because I don't know the extent, specific struggles that you're struggling with. So I'm definitely speaking generally. And so pick up what resonates for you. And I say this to everybody as well. And make meaning of what self-worth means for you based on this information or any other information you find. So there are things out there that are negative that have proven that we are not good enough, or people even. But we have to match that energy. We have to match that vibration in order to be devalued. I'm going to give you some examples from my own life of feeling devalued by the external world, but it was really myself devaluing myself through matching that vibration. And I kind of want to figure out like if I want to start with the core wounds or just give you an example first, because I'm just winging it. But we'll start with just an example from my own life and feeling like an imposter or feeling disempowered due to my past as a drug user. And because I felt like I was no good based on other people's perception of me or based on the system's perception of me, I in turn limited myself in terms of like making new friends because I didn't feel like I could relate to people, or going to events or going out to parties or something. Not necessarily parties. I don't know why I said that. but something in terms of like anything that I really wanted to do, whether it was getting a job or at the time that when I was working for someone, or just any type of project, I would limit myself because I felt like I wasn't good enough. I would start working on something and I would stop because I felt like I wasn't good enough. Sometimes I would look out to the world or family and friends and show them what I've done or an accomplishment as a way to feel valued. And so this went on for a very long time, but what it left me feeling is this idea of lack. Like, I'm only good if I show up. I'm only good if I perform. I'm only good if I am seen as good in the eyes of others. And that's very conditional. But when we experience conditional support and love in the way that we usually do, and this is, by the way, this idea of experiencing conditional love and conditional support isn't something that's done all the time out of bad intentions or malice. Not at all. Our parents and caregivers and society as a whole, especially generations before, you know, it was very dense. It still is. They also had their struggles. They also had financial issues. Also were dealing with the influences of the external world and whatever wars were probably going on, or some type of limitation, just living in a capitalistic society. So not to say that some also are just, narcissists or psychopaths or very disconnected from source energy, therefore acting in low vibrational frequency behaviors, meaning acting unconsciously and acting in ways that harm others, whether intentional or unintentional, but I'm talking about unintentional. But I hope I was inclusive of everybody. But whether it's intentional or not, you're still going to feel that sense of I'm not good enough if you're depending on the approval of others. And if you're valuing yourself from their eyes, then all you can see are the flaws that they would point out in you, and they become flaws that you point out in yourself. And then we'll get that confirmation bias from the outside world. And it becomes a perpetual cycle of feeling like we're just not good enough. Anytime we make a mistake, it's the death of us, essentially. We're not allowed to make mistakes because that would hinder our self-worth if we feel like us showing up 100% means that we are worthy. There are a few core wounds that we deal with, and One of them is the idea of abandonment. And there, this gets a little woo woo and complicated, but I'm a woo woo kind of girl, okay? Very grounded, but also I'm very woo woo. So, this idea, and it resonates with me. And if it doesn't resonate with you, you'll find something that does resonate with you. Just want to put that out there. And always, really quick, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, love. I am so grateful for all my listeners, for all the support, for all the love that I get, receive, feel. And it is mutually just as loving and supportive on my end. And so I am so grateful whenever you guys do share the content, because you have no idea how many people you can help just by sharing content that really sees you for you. So just wanted to throw that out there. But anyways, let's get back to Lauren's question about self-worth, right? And these core wounds that we grow up with. So Lauren, you may have grown up with core wounds that triggered anxiety, triggered stress, triggered a sense of I'm not good enough, I can't perform, what will they think of me? And I could be wrong, but universally speaking on this earth, that's typically some of the things that we deal with, is that fear of abandonment. And when I was talking about the woo-woo thing, this is part of the human experience, essentially, is to forget that we are part of oneness, to be able to have a experience of this physical world and transmute some of these dense energies. And so when we start to open up, or rather awaken, which this is a never ending, lovely process that can be challenging, but it's such a rewarding road to go down when you awaken and stop telling yourself these disempowering stories like they are more powerful than anything that is positive. Because there is no creativity in believing in our lack of self-worth. It will keep us stuck where we're at. We'll go through these loops, these emotional loops and cycles of distress and depression. And, it's sometimes we do need to go through these things, but other times it's us kind of putting ourselves in that state of disempowerment that creates those cyclic loops that we go through of feeling like we're not worthy, feeling like we're not good enough, and then relying on other people to tell us otherwise, when it's nobody's place to tell you how worthy you are but your own place. That is your place. That is what I mean when I talk about the pedestal, is that you are the pedestal. You are the pedestal. You sit on it like a queen. And for my kings out there, you sit on it like a king. And you get to decide how you are going to show up for yourself on this earth, in this world, regardless of what's going out there, because you value yourself. And I hope that made sense. Of course, you can always reach out to me, ask me questions on Instagram at Madam Chico, or comment on this on Spotify or YouTube, anywhere really at this point. If you want to dive deeper in this, and we can definitely have another episode on self-worth. Because I get it, whenever I was experiencing that sense of devaluing myself, it hurt, because it felt like out there, other people's perceptions, systems, etc., was telling me what I can and can't do. And it was also me internalizing this idea of, if I do this, then I will be good. If I don't do that, then I will be good. It was up to me to let it affect me in order for it to have any effect. And I understand what it's like to go through those cycles, the thinking pattern perceptions, and feeling like we don't belong. Like, why are we even here? What is our purpose? This creates a lot of mental ailments, a lot of mental dis-ease. We can even throw in the worst case scenario, which would be like suicide, because there was a point where I felt suicidal due to the lack of self-worth. And no, I'm not giggling. It's just like, I'm kind of like flabbergasted at how it's wild to have been in a place like that and seeing where I'm at right now. And it's like, no way I would ever buy into that anymore. And that's really what is beautiful about this day and age, with the age of information and the age of transformation, is that now there's information that can put a stop to those thoughts that just aren't true unless you say they are. So I dealt with that, with dealing with the whole, well, I'm just a drug addict and I'm just this and I'm just that. And it perpetuated everything I did. It made me feel like an imposter. When I stopped matching that energy, I started believing in my self-worth. And a lot of spiritual teachings help me with that. Religion can help with this. Anything can help with this. I am so grateful for therapy. It's not the route for everybody. The idea of therapy is so expansive. And so define it as you choose. Anyways, what I got from these spiritual principles in terms of self-worth that was truly beautiful was the fact that I didn't have to do anything to be deserving of self-worth, because that is our natural right. We are worthy. To say that we are not worthy is almost like disrespecting the universe, creation, God, saying that you made a mistake, universe, which is not true. There's no pointless creations. Everything has its place. It may not resonate with you, but everything and everyone has a place for a specific reason or reasons. And in my opinion, there's no such thing as an NPC, which means non-playable character. There's no such thing. Everything has consciousness. Everyone is consciousness. Every orchestration is here in place for a reason. So anyways, that was just a little side rant, but I started to believe that I didn't have to do shit at all, and I was worthy. And when I started from that ground, it felt like ground zero of like, I am worthy. I am enough. I don't have to do anything. And it's wild that I thought that I did. Then everything I was doing, it didn't matter whether I effed up or not. Of course, I love the outcomes of feeling like I have been of service or I have stayed aligned to my goals. But when I would fall off track, so to speak, it did not have a identity shattering effect on me, because I detached from the idea of anything that I was doing correlating to I'm worthy. So I'm a good student. I'm a good mother. I'm a good father. I mean, those are great, but they don't translate to worth at all. At all. And I know that may not be popular, especially if you think of it from the opposite point of view of I'm a bad father. Oh, well, at least you know you're still worthy. But it's like you can't invalidate anything in terms of how everything is inclusive of the universe. Everything's an expression. All things. It's about what are you tapping into? And what you tap into is what you're going to experience. And so if you tap into the core wounds that we grow up with, and by tapping in, that means not letting go of these core wounds, because we do experience the fear of abandonment, rejection, lack of love, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love, all these wounds, and there's more, and we can definitely go into that later on, create these conditionings, and then we play them out. And the longer we play them out, the more we think that this is how life is, and we really are not worthy. But when you start to shift, consciously shift into telling yourself a different story, that you are worthy and you don't have to do anything at all. There's something precious about your being, your light. And it's not up for negotiation, Lauren, or anybody else. Lauren, you are powerful. It is up to you to believe in that, because whatever you believe in is what you will experience. And no, this doesn't negate hardship that comes with living in a place that devalues you. But like I said, it's really up to you to match that, to match that energy. Let's say, for instance, someone were to walk up to you, Lauren, and say, I hate you. And you have no idea who they are. It wouldn't affect you. You wouldn't automatically think that, oh, you're a bad person. If you do, just know that there could be some wounds there that need to really be looked at and shown some love and compassion and forgiveness. But if it had no effect on you, that's because you have no idea who they are. You don't have that belief, that programming of spawning hate in people you don't know. So it would mean nothing to you. You wouldn't be able to match that vibration, or if somebody were to say, hey, you're ugly. If you know, and I hope you do, but if you know that you are beautiful, you don't resonate with the idea of being ugly, it would have no effect on you. It wouldn't have an emotional reaction, mental reaction, what have you, because somewhere within yourself you believe that you're ugly. It's the same thing with self-worth. If you felt worthy, you wouldn't feel that you're lacking in self-worth. You wouldn't be devaluing yourself despite what's going on out there. And I think my story is really powerful. It's like, okay, well, some people only saw me as a drug addict, and because they saw me as bad, then I saw myself as bad. When I stopped seeing myself as bad and started seeing my experiences through a different lens of, I can use that experience to help other people who are struggling. And a lot of people deal with addiction. And, being a law student, I'm realizing that it is rampant in every industry. It doesn't matter what social economic status you are, where you live around the world. Drug addiction is very pervasive. But when I stopped identifying with it, I was able to see that and see how I can relate to people and value myself, regardless of the fact that some of the choices I've made in my past, I would have preferred not to make. But that comes with the art of forgiveness as well, forgiving ourselves for how we have shown up for ourselves, how we've shown up for other people, and letting that energy go from the body. Okay. How did that sound? I hope all of that sounded really good, because we're going to talk a little bit about, I kind of went on a tangent and I love this, but I have to circle back around because I remember the self-esteem part. And if you notice, I haven't mentioned anything about self-esteem since the beginning, because this conversation isn't about having high self-esteem at all. Okay. And I try to stay away from that word, honestly, but it's, for practical purposes, I also have to connect with it to help you guys understand that self-esteem is a conditional concept. Okay. It's a trap. It's an absolute trap, because self-esteem is predicated on conditions being favorable to a favorable outcome. So if conditions are not favorable, guess what? Self-esteem goes away. Self-esteem is based on what we do, how we behave, how we show up. When we have high self-esteem, it's because out there has confirmed or congratulated or reaffirmed that we have done something in the eyes of others, institutions, societies, what have you, that is good. And that's a judgment. Self-esteem is based on judgment. Good, bad, right, wrong, left, right. I don't friggin' know, but it's based on even how we feel about ourselves. Meaning, if you are feeling in a low vibratory state or low vibrational state or low energy, some people call it depression. And I understand what it's like to be in a depressive state. Another word I like to stay away from. But honestly, with these labels, sometimes the labels are important, but they can also hinder us if we get too attached to the labels. And this is what I mean when I was getting attached to the idea of drug addiction, by the way, or drug addict. But when we're feeling low, you might attach that low feeling to self-esteem in the form of judgment. And it looks like or sounds like, well, why am I not feeling better? The sun's out, it's shiny, yet I feel like shit. Instantly, your self-esteem is depleted, because now we're attaching our emotional state to our self-esteem, in that if we feel like we're not in a high vibrational state, then there's something wrong, when actually it's normal to feel an array of emotions because we're human. So again, self-esteem is so dependent on how we view ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how other people view us, etc. But when you have unconditional love and unconditional self-worth, because that is who we are, you could be spiraling, which typically when you are in a state of love and grace, you don't really spiral into the negative abyss of panic and dissatisfaction and depression. But nevertheless, just for example, you could be spiraling. But if you're in a state of unconditional acceptance and allowing, because you allow for these emotions to come up, you're not attaching your identity to the fact that you're feeling a certain negative way. You still believe that you're worthy, despite what's coming up. You know deep down that you are worthy. You are not your emotions. None of that. None of that's you. That may be how you express yourself, but that is not you. There's no identity attached to it. Anything and everything that you do is not colored by your perception of worth. Also, with self-esteem, again, it's dependent on what goes on out there. Whenever you do see something, let's say you're comparing yourself to others. By the way, that's a quick way for self-esteem to go bye-bye. Because you cannot be in a state of grace, love, and self-worth, high self-worth, and be comparing yourself to others in a negative way. Usually comparison is negative, okay? Whether you're comparing yourself because you feel like you're fat or skinny or smart or not smart or rich or poor, usually comparison is a devaluation tactic of our own self-worth. It lowers your vibration immediately because you're measuring yourself up against something that can't be measured. And you are so unique that you cannot be replicated, not even in a parallel reality, ever. And yet you're comparing yourself to other people in a negative way who could never be you. You can't make that make sense because no one is you. No one is me. No one is Lauren. Nobody. This is why I don't preach self-esteem, because self-esteem it's just a trap, okay? Oh, look at that person has high self-esteem. Great. The next second they may not. Okay? It's just a trap. So, how do we raise our vibration? Well, we stop giving into the negative thoughts that confirm the biases that we may be experiencing externally. When you stop doing that, you will notice that your external environment will start to match the new thoughts. Thoughts become things, or rather, beliefs become things, because thoughts or beliefs are thoughts that you have thought about on repeat that become hardwired. Great thing about wiring or rewiring the brain is that you can always disconnect neural connections, reconnect, or connect different, new, more empowering ones. It's all in your hand. And we'll talk more about the subconscious brain. There are episodes coming up on it if it already hasn't come out. But I'm super excited. This is why y'all stick around. Because when you start to tell yourself a different story, you're training your subconscious brain to believe in the new beliefs, the new perceptions of self-worth, and believing in that worth, believing that you are good enough. Because you are. It's when we make it obvious that we're good enough, like literally it's that obvious. It's so obvious that we can't see it because we're always trying to complicate things. And I know I like to complicate things sometimes. I don't know about you, Lauren, and everyone else, but things can get complicated for no reason other than what I'm creating in my mind. Okay. So we can decomplicate it by making it or letting it be obvious that we are love. How could we not be? We are part of this amazing experience in whatever way that we are. And we all have a purpose just by being. So when we tell ourselves this through mantras or writing it out, or thought stopping, which is where when you notice yourself going down a negative thought loop or negative thought pattern, you stop it. You change the pattern. Cord cutting ceremonies, that's something where you can set an intention. It could be by yourself or with other people. You could do like a fire ceremony or anything, but any type of cord cutting ceremony where you release the negative thoughts. You release the hold that it has on you. And do this on repeat. Okay. Repetition is the mother of all learning. Okay. I will never get tired of saying that because it is truly the case. And when you do something on repeat, it becomes habit. It becomes the norm. This is not just some positive motivation, but this is actually how you train yourself on repeat to shift. When this becomes a new norm, you'll feel expansive. You can encompass more possibilities. You show up for yourself in a whole nother way. You show up for the people in your life, for your kids, for your job, for your creative expressions, for your entrepreneurship, for travel. I mean, you just show up in all aspects or most aspects of your life because the program is different. It's no longer feeding into the idea of I am not worthy. And it neutralizes the negative thoughts to where it's really hard to fully buy into the bullshit when the positivity, when the natural state of being becomes the new norm, when you come back into your truth before any of the trauma, before any of the conditionings, when you came out the womb ready to experience the juiciness of this world before the world was like, hey, I'm going to show you some real real challenges and let's see what you do with that. And, this is something I learn every day. I learn this with my plant medicine retreats. I've learned this in therapy. I've learned this on my spiritual journey. And I walk that talk, and it's incredible how I can't believe silly me for buying into the idea of I am not worthy, because it's just not true. And Lauren, I don't care how many times that you may tell yourself without realizing that you're not worthy, you're worthy. You're always worthy. And it is not dependent on self-esteem or anything that you do. And when you get to that point of recognizing your worth, you will never, ever, 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 ever fully buy into negativity. This is not to say that negativity doesn't exist, but it becomes a choice, and you will choose to not go there because you know it doesn't feel good. It is not aligned to your natural state. And the goal is to get our bodies, every back to the natural state, back to the knowing, back to who we actually are. So just know that in order to be devalued or to be lacking in self-worth, you have to devalue yourself first. You have to agree to be devalued. And this may be an unconscious agreement, but it's an agreement nevertheless, because nothing happens without permission at some level, even if we don't understand it. This does not negate bad things happening, okay? But I am saying that if you understand that this is a vibratory world, whatever you're vibrating at is what you'll experience. So if you vibrate at a lower frequency or a negative frequency, you may experience what that frequency has to entail. But when you raise your vibration by letting go of the beliefs that hold you back, you will experience everything that frequency has to entail. So thank you guys for letting me share my perspective on self-worth, self-esteem, and just a little example from my life and how I was devaluing myself through the external factors that I felt was devaluing me, as well as just learning how to raise our vibration and how we technically are always at a high vibration. It's only our beliefs that make us think otherwise. And then we funnel our energy through tunnels that don't feel good, negative loops, etc., etc. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your question. This was a really great Q&A. And I know that you asking this question will help other people. So, and I also want to put that out there. It's like, you guys have no idea how many people you help when you ask a question. So if you have any questions that you want put in a podcast, please reach out to me, DM me at Madam Chico on Instagram. All my links are in the show notes. And as always, you are loved. You are loved. And there's nothing, no thing, no one, no institution, no entity, nothing out there that could ever take that from you. I don't care what it is. Okay? You are worthy. You're valid simply by existing. Thank you guys so much for being here with me on my journey and having me a part of yours. Always, if you want to reach out to me for coaching, DM me, email me, subscribe to my newsletters for more juicy content on how to be more of who you truly are by letting go of the limitations that you are not. Thank you guys so much for being here on the Y'all Podcast, and I will see you next week.